One act of treachery was enough for humans to win everything. Humanity had only been part of the Concord of Nine for 12 years, a short time compared to the hundreds of years most other species had spent in the Alliance. Yet, despite their youth and inexperience, humans had already made a mark in the galaxy. They were known for their stubbornness, clever thinking, and an ability to survive in situations where others would fail. Some saw them as reckless, others as unpredictable, but could ignore them. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the exploration cruiser Horizon Dawn, looking out at the spinning rings of the Concord capital. The city-like platform stretched across the planet's upper atmosphere, illuminated by millions of lights that reflected in the dark space around them. It was beautiful, almost calming, but Daniel felt none of that peace. His eyes were fixed on the distant horizon, thinking about what might go wrong next. "Daniel, are you ready for the meeting?" Laura asked, her voice calm but serious. Daniel nodded without looking at her. "As ready as we'll ever be. I just hope the council listens this time." Laura sighed. "The council doesn't really listen."
They vote, and votes are based on fear or favor, not logic.
Daniel chuckled lightly. "Then we better make sure our evidence and numbers are perfect. Logic may not win the council over, but it might stop them from making a mistake." Humans had learned early on that appearances could be deceiving. Other species often underestimated them. Some thought humans were weak because their fleets were smaller or their colonies younger. Some assumed humans lacked the discipline of older species. But Daniel and Laura knew better. Humans were strong because they adapted quickly. They could work under pressure, think on their feet, and survive situations that would destroy others. The galaxy did not yet realize how dangerous that could be. On the bridge, Daniel's crew moved efficiently, checking reports, scanning nearby systems, and running simulations. Lieutenant Marcus Hill, a young human navigator, pointed at a holographic display of nearby trade routes. "Captain, our jump coordinates to the fuel depot are confirmed. All lanes are clear, but there's a small gravitational anomaly near the Zeta 1-2 cluster. It shouldn't affect us, but it could slow the convoy. Keep monitoring it. If it changes, I want a full report immediately." "No surprises." "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. He tapped a few commands on the console, eyes focused, hands moving quickly. Daniel liked having him on the bridge. He was careful but fast, a good combination in unpredictable situations. Meanwhile, Laura finished reviewing her proposal. She looked at Daniel and smiled faintly. "This is our chance to prove humanity isn't just another inexperienced member. If we can secure this fuel, it will show the other species that we are capable of thinking ahead and managing resources wisely." Daniel nodded. "Then let's make them see it. Not with threats or force, but with competence." Despite their determination, both of them knew the truth. Being part of the Concord of Nine was dangerous. Alliances were fragile, resources were scarce, and trust was even scarcer. Most species valued their own survival above all else. Humans had to navigate carefully, making friends and avoiding enemies, all while staying strong enough to protect their colonies. It was a delicate balance, and one small mistake could tip everything into chaos. Outside the Horizon Dawn, the city-like capital of the Concord glimmered like a web of lights in the darkness. Daniel watched as ships of all shapes and sizes moved between platforms carrying goods, passengers, and messages. Each ship represented trade, communication, and sometimes hidden intentions. In the Concord, appearances could be deceiving. Even a smile from an ambassador could hide resentment. Even a friendly negotiation could be a trap. Daniel had learned that lesson many times. A soft chime on Laura's tablet drew her attention. She tapped it and frowned. "Captain, we're receiving a message from the Concord Council. It's marked urgent." Daniel leaned closer. "Open it." Laura's fingers moved quickly, revealing a holographic projection of the council chamber. 9 alien delegates appeared, each representing one of the member species. Their forms were different from humans, some tall and thin, others short and wide, but all carried the weight of authority. Their eyes, or whatever organ they used for sight, focused on the camera. The message was direct, a warning that the fuel proposal would face strong opposition and that some delegates were questioning humanity's reliability. Daniel clenched his jaw. "They're trying to intimidate us before the meeting even starts." Lara nodded. "They always do. But intimidation is only effective if we let it be. We need to prepare, present our case clearly, and remain calm. That's the human way." The Horizon Dawn entered the Concord Capital's docking zone. Massive gates opened to allow the ship inside. Daniel and Laura walked through the corridors toward the council chambers, accompanied by their human security team. They passed diplomats from other species, some curious, some suspicious. Daniel noticed the way some delegates whispered to each other when humans passed by. He didn't like it, but he had learned not to react to every glance or murmur. Humans had to appear strong, even when they felt small. The council chamber was enormous, filled with seats arranged in a circular pattern. Holographic displays showed maps, trade routes, and reports from across the galaxy. The delegate spoke in a language Daniel did not fully understand, though translators provided him and Laura with live translations. Every word mattered. Every gesture could sway the vote. When Daniel and Laura entered, the chamber quieted. Some delegates looked at them with curiosity, others with suspicion. The head of the council, a tall being named Corvin from the Yalari species, nodded formally. "Humans," Corvin said, his voice deep and measured. "You have requested an audience. Present your proposal." Laura stepped forward confidently. "Honorable delegates, we come with a proposal to secure quantum fuel for Earth's colonies. Our request is modest compared to the total reserves, yet it is essential for our survival and growth. Humanity has proven capable of managing resources responsibly, and this fuel will allow us to continue contributing to the Concord. We understand concerns about trust, given our limited time in the Concord. That is why we have prepared detailed reports on our colony's energy consumption, our fleet operations, and our trade agreements. All data is verified, transparent, and open to your review." Some delegates whispered to each other, while others remained silent, watching. Daniel felt a slight tension in the room. Humans were outsiders, yet they had a reputation for persistence. If they faltered, the council would likely deny the proposal immediately. A delegate from the Alfari species, tall with silver-colored skin and multiple eyes, spoke sharply. 12 years is not enough to prove your species' reliability. How can we trust humans with our valuable resources? One mistake could jeopardize trade for the entire Concord. Laura met the Alfari delegate's gaze calmly. "We do not ask for blind trust. We ask for an opportunity to prove ourselves. Our records, our colonies, and our fleets show responsibility and efficiency. We can manage the fuel safely, and we will share progress with the Council regularly." Another delegate from the smaller Terran species chimed in. "The humans are persistent. That counts for something." But will it last under pressure? Can they handle crises without panicking or overreacting? Daniel stepped forward slightly. We handle crises because we must. Survival is part of who we are. When humans face challenges, we adapt, learn, and find solutions. That is why our colonies remain operational even in difficult conditions, and why our fleets complete missions others would abandon. The room was silent for a moment. The weight of Daniel's words hung in the air. Some delegates nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in his statement. Others remained skeptical, their expressions unreadable. Laura continued, "We do not seek to dominate or control. We seek partnership. With this fuel, we can expand trade, support other species, and contribute to the stability of the Concord. Denying humanity this opportunity would not only harm us, but it would also limit the growth and efficiency of the Concord as a whole." Daniel and Laura's message was clear. Humans were not here to beg. They were here to prove themselves as capable, reliable, and indispensable members of the Galactic Alliance. The path ahead would not be easy, but both understood that perseverance and preparation were their greatest weapons. As the council debated, Daniel and Laura stepped back. They knew that politics could be slow and frustrating. The alliances were fragile. Decisions could be swayed by fear, envy, or ambition. Yet, despite the uncertainty, they felt a quiet confidence. Humans had survived far worse challenges. In the galaxy, strength was not always measured by fleets or weapons. Sometimes it was measured by patience, intelligence, and the ability to endure. Daniel watched the holographic displays, noting the positions of each delegate and their likely votes. He whispered to Laura, "No matter what happens, we must be ready. This is just the beginning. The real tests are yet to come."
Laura nodded. Then we prepare, we watch, and we wait.
Humans are good at waiting, and when the time comes, we act. The council continued its debate, but outside the chamber, the city of the Concord shimmered with life. Ships moved along precise routes, trade continued, and alliances quietly shifted. Every species had its motives, its fears, and its ambitions. And somewhere in the midst of it all, humans were learning the rules, understanding the risks, and quietly proving their value. For Daniel and Laura, the challenges of the future were already forming on the horizon. They did not yet know that one act of treachery hidden deep within the politics of the Concord would soon test humanity in ways no one could predict. But for now, they focused on the present, on preparation, persistence, and the careful steps that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans had survived worse, and they would survive this too. The calm after the council meeting did not last long. Humanity had returned to their cruiser, the Horizon Dawn, confident that their arguments had been heard, yet they could sense an invisible tension in the air. The Concord was a web of hidden motives, and the humans were at the center of it, exposed like a small ship in a stormy sea. Captain Daniel Brooks leaned over the railing of the observation deck, staring at the stars. "Something doesn't feel right," he said quietly. Ambassador Laura Mitchell joined him, her expression serious. "I know. The vote wasn't unanimous, and some delegates didn't even hide their doubt. I think we earned respect, yes, but we also earned suspicion. Suspicion is worse than open hostility in the Concord." Daniel nodded. "Suspicion is dangerous. It spreads faster than facts, and once it takes root, it can turn allies into enemies in an instant." Their unease was justified. Weeks later, reports started coming in from New Carthage, one of humanity's most prosperous colonies. Daniel read them in silence, each line heavier than the last. Power grids were failing. Orbital defense satellites, which were supposed to protect the cities, had gone offline and, in some cases, had fired on human settlements. Automated freighters exploded mid-air, scattering valuable cargo across the atmosphere. Communications were cut in multiple sectors, casualties mounted by the thousands before anyone could respond. Laura stared at the screen, her hands trembling slightly. This can't be an accident. Not all of it. Daniel's jaw tightened. It's not. Someone is attacking us. The news traveled quickly through the Horizon Dawn and reached the Concord Council. The Valoran Syndicate, one of the older and more influential species in the Alliance, was quick to blame humanity. They presented what they claimed was evidence: human encryption codes embedded in the attacks on New Carthage. The implication was clear. Humans had supposedly orchestrated the disaster to justify military expansion and gain sympathy. Daniel slammed his fist on the table. This is impossible. We didn't touch those systems. Laura shook her head. They've framed us, and they know the Council will act before we can explain ourselves. The Concord was not kind to the accused. Decisions were often made based on fear, not truth. Sanctions were issued almost immediately. Trade routes to Earth were cut. Human ships were restricted from conquered space. Essential supplies for colonies in distant systems were delayed. Humanity had gone from being a respected member to being a pariah almost overnight. On New Carthage, Commander Ethan Clark coordinated relief efforts. He moved through the devastated streets, helping wherever he could. Buildings were damaged, streets were littered with debris, and families mourned the loss of their homes and loved ones. Ethan's heart ached as he saw the destruction, but he did not allow despair to stop him. He knew humans had survived worse disasters on Earth. They would survive this as well. Ethan worked closely with Olivia Turner, the intelligence analyst responsible for monitoring communications and cyber systems. She sat in a darkened room, her eyes scanning lines of corrupted data pulled from New Carthage's destroyed networks. Daniel, Laura, she said over the communicator. I found something. The timing of these attacks doesn't add up. The commands weren't sent from human systems. They were routed through our networks, yes, but only after being altered. Someone stole our codes, then used them to launch the attack. Daniel leaned back in his chair, relief and frustration mixing together. So the Council was wrong, but they don't know it yet. How do we prove it? Olivia tapped her fingers rapidly on the console. We need more data. The Valorans covered their tracks well. But every system leaves a trace. If we're patient, we can follow the path backward and find the source. Laura's voice was calm but firm. We need to be careful. Any sudden move could make it look like we're trying to cover something up. The Concord wants humans to be guilty. They want to see us fail. If we rush, they'll take our caution as admission. Daniel rubbed his temples. So we wait, while our colonies suffer. It feels like the worst kind of helplessness. Olivia shook her head. We're not helpless. We're observing. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means we gather the proof, then strike when the moment is right. Daniel knew she was right, but patience was not easy. Humans were used to acting, to solving problems directly. This was different. This required a subtle approach, one that would test their intelligence, endurance, and trust in each other. Back at the Council, the Valorans continued to push their narrative. They demanded that humanity be sanctioned further, arguing that the attacks on New Carthage proved humans were dangerous. Many member species, already unsure about humanity, sided with the Valorans. Others hesitated, unsure what to believe. For every vote in humanity's favor, there were two against. In private, some smaller species confided in Laura. They had doubts about the Valoran story, but fear of retaliation kept them silent. They respected humans' persistence and resourcefulness, but openly supporting Earth was risky. Laura understood. Every alliance had its limits, and trust was a fragile commodity in the Concord. Meanwhile, Daniel and Ethan worked on evacuation and defense plans for other human colonies. They fortified orbital shields, rerouted supply lines, and prepared emergency measures. The goal was not revenge, it was survival. Humanity could not afford to be reckless. If they struck back prematurely, the Concord would unite against them, and the attack that had framed them would succeed in destroying them entirely. Olivia continued her work in secret. She traced network anomalies across several systems, carefully mapping every irregularity. It was slow, painstaking work, but she found patterns. The sabotage originated near Valoran-controlled territories, then passed through stolen human codes before reaching New Carthage. Every trace was small, easily dismissed by a casual observer, but when pieced together, it painted a clear picture of deceit.
Daniel called a meeting in the Horizon Dawn's conference room.
Ethan, Laura, and Olivia gathered around a central table. Holographic displays showed maps, attack vectors, and communication logs. "We can prove it," Olivia said, her eyes scanning the data. "The Valorans did this. They wanted to make humans look guilty. Every anomaly leads back to their systems." Daniel nodded. "Then we need to act carefully. Publicly, we maintain composure. Privately, we gather the evidence and make sure the Council sees it in full. Timing is everything." Laura leaned forward. "We must also protect our colonies. Even if the Council listens later, the immediate danger remains. Humans are still in harm's way. We can't let them suffer while we wait for justice." Ethan spoke quietly, his voice firm. "We focus on defense and evidence. Let them attack New Carthage once. We can survive that. But if we overreact, the Concord will see us as the aggressors. If we are patient, we control the narrative." Daniel's eyes met Laura's. "It's a test of patience, intelligence, and restraint. One wrong move, and it could end badly. But if we succeed—" He paused, letting the thought linger. "If we succeed, humanity proves it belongs in the Concord, not as a pawn, but as a power." Weeks passed. Humanity's colonies stabilized with emergency measures. Supply lines were restored slowly. Human engineers worked day and night, repairing damaged systems. Meanwhile, Olivia traced more evidence, carefully documenting every anomaly and preparing reports that could not be ignored. Daniel and Laura coordinated diplomatic efforts, quietly reaching out to species that might be sympathetic or undecided. They shared small, verified pieces of evidence to sow doubt about the Valorans' accusations without revealing their full hand. The Valorans, confident in their deception, continued their pressure. They believed humanity was cornered and could do little more than defend themselves. They underestimated the patience and strategy that humans could employ. That overconfidence would become their weakness. One evening, Daniel and Laura stood on the Horizon Dawn's observation deck, watching the lights of New Carthage flicker below. Ethan and Olivia were still at work, poring over reports and analyzing networks. The colony looked calm now, but the memory of chaos lingered. Daniel said quietly, "This is only the beginning. They think they've won, but patience is a weapon humans know well. And when the time comes, we won't need fleets or bombs. The truth itself will be enough." "I hope the Concord sees it before it's too late." Laura's eyes were firm. "They will. One way or another, the truth has a way of coming out. In the quiet of the observation deck, humans prepared. They waited, carefully and deliberately, knowing that one act of patience, one well-timed revelation, could change everything. They were small in the galaxy, but their minds and their strategy made them dangerous in ways no other species could yet see. Even in the midst of betrayal, humans found focus. They had survived countless disasters on Earth. They had endured wars, famine, and disease. They had adapted to every challenge and emerged stronger. The Valorans had made a mistake, underestimating their patience, intelligence, and unity. Weeks turned into months. Every piece of evidence Olivia gathered was cataloged, every communication traced, and every anomaly documented. Daniel coordinated defensive measures, ensuring that humanity's colonies were safe from further sabotage. Lara continued her quiet diplomacy, speaking with smaller species that were watching the events unfold. Slowly, doubt about the Valoran story spread. Suspicion began to seed itself among the council members who had once blindly condemned humanity. And still, the Horizon Dawn sailed through the stars, a symbol of human perseverance and cunning. Humanity did not strike back openly. They did not fire a single weapon. They waited, prepared, and observed, knowing that when the moment came, the Valorans' deception would be revealed, and the truth would secure humanity's place in the galaxy. For Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and Olivia, the challenge was clear: endure the false accusations, protect their people, and gather the evidence needed to expose the Valorans. The Concord believed they had cornered humanity, but the humans were not yet finished. The war had begun, not with fleets, not with weapons, but with patience, strategy, and the quiet determination to survive and prove the truth. And in that quiet determination, humanity's real strength began to shine. Humanity had been under pressure for months. The attacks on New Carthage, the sanctions from the Concord, and the false accusations from the Valoran Syndicate had tested them in ways no human had ever faced. Yet, through it all, they remained focused. The humans had learned a lesson from history. Rushing to action could be dangerous, but patience combined with careful planning could turn the tide. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, staring at the map of conquered space. Holographic lights marked the positions of human colonies, trade routes, and key Valoran territories. The patterns of control and influence were clear. The Valorans had assumed they could crush humanity with fear and false evidence. They had underestimated humans' ability to think ahead. Commander Ethan Clark approached Daniel, his hands folded behind his back. "Captain, we've analyzed the next wave of Valoran maneuvers. They expect us to strike, to defend aggressively, or to appeal publicly in panic. They don't realize we've already prepared multiple contingency plans. They think they control the narrative. They do not. Then we'll show them a story they can't ignore without firing a single shot." Intelligence analyst Olivia Turner leaned over the holographic map, pointing to lines of data connecting Valoran-controlled systems. Every attack on New Carthage was routed through stolen human encryption. We can trace every step. If we release this evidence at the right moment, the Council will see the truth. The Valorans' plan depends on confusion and fear. If we remove that confusion, their control collapses. Ambassador Laura Mitchell stepped forward. "We also have allies. Not many, but enough. Smaller species that fear Valoran dominance have been quietly observing. They want proof of our innocence. We can give it to them and gain their support." Daniel rubbed his chin. "So the plan is clear. Protect our colonies, gather our evidence, and wait. But we also need leverage. Something that makes the Valorans' position weaker before we reveal their treachery." We have leverage. Most of the Concord relies on human technology for navigation, communications, and trade. A small delay, a minor disruption, nothing life-threatening, can create enough pressure to remind the Concord of our importance. Then, when the truth comes out, the Council will have no choice but to act in our favor.
Laura nodded. We will not threaten or harm anyone.
We simply demonstrate that humans are indispensable. If the Valorans had acted honestly, none of this would be necessary. Their deception has created the opportunity for humans to take the lead. Daniel exhaled. It feels strange, using patience and leverage instead of fleets. But sometimes, the mind is the strongest weapon. For weeks, humanity executed their strategy quietly. Ships delivering critical supplies for the Concord were slowed slightly, enough to show the Council that humans were a vital part of the system. Maintenance updates for long-range navigation routes were delayed just enough to create small inconveniences for trade fleets. Every action was careful and calculated, designed to send a subtle message. Humanity mattered, even if the Velorans claimed otherwise. Meanwhile, Olivia and her team worked tirelessly to complete the evidence archive. Each fragment of data, every trace of stolen codes, and every anomaly was documented in detail. The proof was undeniable, but it had to be released strategically. If the Valorans realized humans were preparing to expose them, they could try to destroy the evidence or create a new distraction. Timing was critical. One evening, Daniel gathered his key team members in the Horizon Dawn's conference room. Ethan, Laura, and Olivia sat around the central table, holographic displays showing the complete network map of the Valoran sabotage. "We are ready," Olivia said, her voice steady. "The evidence is complete, verified and cross-checked. Every link leads to Valoran-controlled systems. There is no way to deny it." Laura added, "We've also contacted sympathetic delegates quietly. They have been reviewing small pieces of our evidence. They are ready to support us when the full archive is revealed." Ethan looked at Daniel. "The Valorans will not see it coming. They believe humanity is cornered. Their arrogance will work against them. They think they control the Council." "They do not." Daniel nodded.
Good. Then we proceed carefully.
We continue to protect our colonies, maintain calm in the Council, and wait for the right moment to release the evidence. When we do, it must be complete and undeniable. Days passed. Humanity's colonies remained secure, thanks to proactive defenses and careful monitoring. The Valorans continued to pressure the Council, demanding stricter sanctions, arguing that humans were dangerous. Most of the smaller species remained silent, unwilling to oppose the powerful Valoran syndicate. But cracks were appearing. Some delegates began to notice inconsistencies in the Valorans' story. The evidence they had received seemed too neat, too perfect. Certain attack patterns did not match human capabilities. Some communications from New Carthage contradicted the Valorans' narrative. Doubt began to spread quietly, almost imperceptibly, among the Council. On the Horizon Dawn, Olivia monitored these reactions closely. "Captain, we're seeing small signs of doubt. The Valoran story is not holding up under scrutiny. Delegates are starting to question what we said weeks ago. This is the moment we've been waiting for. We prepare for release." Laura nodded. "We must be precise. The evidence must be delivered simultaneously to all delegates. There can be no chance for manipulation. The truth must hit at once, without delay." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Then we act tonight. Ethan, prepare secure transmission channels to all Council members. Olivia, make sure the archive is ready for instant access. Laura, coordinate with our allies quietly. Once the evidence is released, we cannot stop the process. The city-like platforms shimmered with light. Ships moved silently through space, unaware of the coming revelation. In the Horizon Dawn, the team worked tirelessly, finalizing the evidence and preparing the transmissions. Every step had been rehearsed, every detail double-checked. Finally, the moment came. Daniel gave the order. Release the evidence. Instantly, the complete archive of Valoran sabotage was transmitted to every council member. The data included traces of stolen human codes, command routes, timestamps, communications, and logs that proved beyond doubt that the Valorans had orchestrated the attack on New Carthage. Every piece was verifiable, every claim undeniable. The council chamber went silent as delegates reviewed the data. The Valoran representatives attempted to argue, but the evidence spoke for itself. Their own encrypted signatures, once hidden, were revealed. The sabotage could no longer be denied. Some delegates gasped. Others whispered urgently to each other. The smaller species, long waiting for proof, now spoke openly in favor of humanity. One by one, votes shifted. The Council, once poised to punish Earth further, now had no choice but to act against the Valorans. Daniel and Laura watched the reactions from the Horizon Dawn. Ethan kept his hand on the console, ready for any counterattack, but none came. The Valorans' confidence had turned to panic. Their carefully built narrative crumbled within hours. Laura said quietly, "They underestimated us. They believed patience was weakness. They were wrong." Daniel nodded. "And we proved it without firing a single shot. It's proof that humans can play the game of the Concord. We can survive treachery and emerge stronger." The Council moved swiftly. Sanctions against humanity were lifted immediately. Emergency aid was dispatched to New Carthage. The Valoran Syndicate faced investigation, economic penalties, and the loss of influence in council committees. Trade networks collapsed, and other species distanced themselves from the once powerful Valorans. Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and Olivia were exhausted but satisfied. Humanity had survived the false accusations, protected their colonies, and exposed the truth. They had done it not through weapons or brute force, but through strategy, patience, and careful planning. In the following days, human engineers and diplomats worked closely with other species to rebuild trust and stability. The Council recognized that humans were no longer outsiders. They were a power to be reckoned with, capable of intelligence, strategy, and resilience. Daniel watched the stars from the Horizon Dawn's observation deck, feeling a quiet sense of pride. "We were underestimated," he said, "but we used it to our advantage. The Valorans tried to crush us with deception, and they failed. They gave us the opportunity to prove ourselves." Laura stood beside him. "One act of treachery brought out the best in humanity. We showed the galaxy what we are capable of, not with weapons, but with our minds and patience." Ethan added, "And the galaxy will remember this. Every species that witnessed the collapse of the Valorans' plot now knows that humans cannot be underestimated." Olivia smiled faintly. "This is only the beginning. We have shown we can survive treachery, but we must continue to be vigilant. The Concord is a place of alliances and deceit. One cannot grow complacent." Daniel nodded.
Agreed. But for now, we celebrate.
Humanity survived, and the truth has triumphed. That is more than enough for today. In that quiet moment, as the stars shone brightly beyond the Horizon Dawn, the human team understood something important. Patience, intelligence, and strategy were weapons far more powerful than fleets of ships or fleets of weapons. One act of patience, carefully planned, had turned the tide. The Valorans had tried to control the narrative, to crush humanity before they could grow, but their treachery had only revealed human strength. Humanity had not just survived, humanity had won. The Valoran Syndicate's fall was swift and complete. Once the evidence of their treachery had been revealed, the Concord Council acted without hesitation. Sanctions against humanity were lifted immediately, and aid was sent to New Carthage to repair the damage caused by the sabotage. The Council's action was decisive, and it left no room for doubt. Humans were innocent, and the Valarans were guilty. Captain Daniel Brooks watched the news feed from the Horizon Dawn as the Council announced the results. The Valoran leaders were stripped of their positions in key committees, their trade networks disrupted, and their reputation in ruins. Daniel leaned back in his chair, feeling a strange mix of relief and satisfaction. Humanity had survived a threat that had seemed impossible, and now they had gained the respect of the entire Concord. Ambassador Laura Mitchell joined him, her eyes calm but sharp. "It's done," she said. "The Council recognizes humanity as more than just another member."
We are now seen as a power they must consider seriously. Daniel nodded.
And it happened without a single shot fired, no fleets destroyed, no wars started, just patience, planning, and truth. That's something the Concord will remember. Meanwhile, Commander Ethan Clark coordinated relief and reconstruction efforts on New Carthage. The colonies were still in ruins, but with the Valoran influence removed, resources could finally reach the people who needed them. Engineers worked tirelessly to restore power grids, repair orbital satellites, and rebuild cities. Supplies flowed steadily from Earth, and the morale of the colonists improved daily. Intelligence analyst Olivia Turner continued her work, ensuring that no hidden Valoran networks could rise again to threaten human colonies. She traced every remnant of sabotage, analyzed patterns of communication, and secured data channels to prevent future attacks. Her work was meticulous, precise, and vital. Without it, humanity's victory could have been temporary. The council meetings that followed were unprecedented. Humans were no longer on the defensive. They were now the ones shaping decisions. Ambassador Laura Mitchell presented proposals for fairer trade, balanced governance, and stricter rules against unilateral aggression. Smaller species, grateful for humanity's honesty and leadership, supported her initiatives. Daniel found himself watching the council with a mix of curiosity and pride. Humans had arrived as outsiders, underestimated by nearly every member species. Yet now they were indispensable. Every vote, every alliance, and every decision had shifted. The Concord had learned that humanity could survive deceit, endure pressure, and act strategically when necessary. Even the Valorans, once confident and arrogant, had to accept their diminished position. Their influence waned rapidly as smaller species refused to cooperate with them. The network of trade and communication they had built over decades collapsed within weeks. Many species withdrew from Valoran-controlled systems, preferring to rely on human-supported routes instead.
On the Horizon Dawn, Daniel gathered his team for a private meeting.
Laura, Ethan, and Olivia sat around the conference table, each exhausted but alert. "We've done it," Daniel said quietly. "The Valoran's power is broken, our colonies are secure, and humanity has a place in the Concord that cannot be ignored." Laura smiled faintly. "Yes. And the lesson is clear. Strength is not always measured by weapons or fleets. Strategy, patience, and unity can achieve far more than force alone." Ethan added, "Our colonies are rebuilding. Our people are safe. And the Council now understands our capabilities." The The Concord will respect humans from now on. And we must remember that vigilance is always necessary. The galaxy is full of ambition and greed. But for now, we've won. Humanity has proven itself. Days turned into weeks, and reconstruction continued across human colonies. Engineers repaired cities, restored orbital defenses, and upgraded technology. Trade routes reopened, with humans now controlling key pathways. Diplomats negotiated fairer terms, ensuring that smaller species were protected from the manipulation of more powerful members like the Valorans. Daniel observed the progress with quiet pride. Humanity had not only survived a treacherous attack, but had also turned it into an opportunity. One act of Valoran betrayal had exposed their weakness and revealed humanity's strength. It was a lesson that the galaxy would remember. Underestimating humans was dangerous. Laura continued her work in the Council, proposing reforms to prevent any single species from gaining too much power. Her efforts were met with strong support from smaller species, who had witnessed the consequences of unchecked ambition. The Concord began to change, slowly but surely, under human guidance. In private, many delegates admitted that they had underestimated humans. The Valoran act of treachery, intended to destroy humanity, had instead revealed the true potential of the human species. Their ability to endure, adapt, and act strategically had won them respect and influence far beyond what anyone had predicted. Even on the Horizon Dawn, the crew felt a sense of quiet triumph. They had survived sabotage, false accusations, and political isolation. They had protected their colonies, gathered undeniable evidence, and restored their reputation. The victory had been achieved not with force, but with intelligence, patience, and careful planning. Daniel looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth, of New Carthage, and of all the human colonies across the galaxy. "We've proven something important," he said softly. "Humans can face treachery, survive it, and turn it to our advantage. That's our real strength. And now the Concord sees it too. We are no longer outsiders. We are leaders. We are necessary. And we have earned respect that cannot be taken away by lies or sabotage." Ethan added, "The Valorans thought they could corner us, but they failed. Their treachery was their undoing. And now, the galaxy knows that humans are clever, patient, and strong." Olivia smiled faintly. "One act of treachery was enough for the Valorans to try to destroy us, but it was also enough for humanity to rise. They thought they could win everything. Instead, they handed everything to us." Across the Concord, the changes were evident. Human influence expanded in trade, diplomacy, and technology. Smaller species sought alliances with humans, recognizing that they were now reliable and strategic partners. The Valorans were isolated, their power diminished, and their reputation tarnished permanently. The human colonies flourished under renewed support and guidance. Cities were rebuilt stronger than before. Orbital defense systems were upgraded with advanced human technology. Trade networks were restored, now under more equitable control. And the people, having endured fear and chaos, gained confidence in humanity's ability to protect and lead. In private moments, Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and Olivia reflected on the journey. They had faced deception, danger, and doubt. They had been falsely accused and politically cornered. Arguing now? Yet they had survived. They had acted with patience, strategy, and intelligence, turning the greatest threat into the greatest opportunity. Daniel spoke quietly as he watched the stars. "The galaxy underestimated us. They thought patience was weakness. They thought intelligence was a tool only for others. But they were wrong. Humans can survive treachery, and we can rise stronger because of it. Laura nodded. The Valorans will remember this, and every other species in the Concord will remember it too. Underestimating humans is no longer an option. Ethan smiled. And the best part?
We didn't fire a single shot. We didn't destroy a single planet.
We won because we planned carefully, acted wisely, and trusted ourselves. Olivia added, and that's the human way. Patience, intelligence, and endurance. That's how we survive, and that's how we thrive. The galaxy has learned it the hard way. Months later, the Horizon Dawn returned to Earth. Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and Olivia were greeted as heroes. The people celebrated not just for the survival of their colonies, but for the way humanity had proven itself in the galaxy. One act of Valoran treachery had been the catalyst for humanity's greatest demonstration of strength. The Council of Nine now recognized humans as equals, indispensable members whose presence shaped decisions and alliances. The smaller species relied on human guidance. Trade routes and technology flowed more efficiently. And the Valorans, once arrogant and powerful, remained isolated, their influence broken. Daniel looked out at the horizon of Earth, thinking of the galaxy beyond. We faced treachery, survived it, and turned it into victory. One act was enough to change everything. Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. And that's the lesson. The galaxy will not forget it. Humans are patient, clever, and strong. And from now on, we lead not with force, but with intelligence and strategy. Ethan added, the Concord will never underestimate humans again. Olivia smiled. No, they won't. One act of treachery gave humanity the chance to show its real strength. And we did. The galaxy has learned a hard truth. Humans cannot be ignored, underestimated, or defeated by lies. Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and Olivia stood together on the Horizon Dawn's observation deck, watching the stars. Humanity had survived betrayal, proved its intelligence, and earned its place among the stars. The Concord had changed, the Valorans had fallen, and humans had risen. And so, one act of treachery had been enough, not to destroy humanity, but to reveal its true power. Humans had won everything.